Thunderstorms are expected around 2 p.m. Wind gusts are up to 9 kilometers per hour. Now from Lagos we go to Benin City. Benin City has 26 degrees Celsius average temperature that's expected throughout the day, and might rise up to 32 degrees Celsius, and might come down a little just by 1 degree to 25 degrees Celsius. That's the lowest that's expected, and it's expected that it will be mostly cloudy, and thunderstorms expected around that will be 4 p.m. Wind gusts are up to 10 kilometers per hour. From Benin we go to Port Harcourt. Port Harcourt is expected to have 26 degrees Celsius throughout the day. It's expected it will be mostly cloudy, and then temperature may rise up to 32 degrees Celsius and may just come down a little by 1 degrees Celsius to 25 degrees Celsius. And rainy conditions are expected around 4 p.m. Wind gusts are up to 13 kilometers per hour. From Port Harcourt we go to Abuja, that is here in Abuja, and Abuja is expected to experience 25 degrees Celsius and expected to be mostly cloudy, and then 32 degrees Celsius might be the top, the ceiling, and then you might have the floor of 24 degrees Celsius, and then it's expected to be mostly cloudy like I said before, and cloudy conditions will continue all day while wind gusts are up to 14 kilometers per hour. And from Lagos we go to Kaduna. Kaduna is 25 degrees Celsius that's expected through the day, but it might go as high as 33 degrees Celsius, and might go a little bit lower to 24 degrees Celsius, and it's expected to be mostly cloudy, while partly cloudy conditions are expected around noon. Wind gusts are up to 22 kilometers per hour. From Kaduna we go to Kano. For Kano you have, and that's the last we're taking for the day, Kano 28 degrees Celsius. That's about the highest expected today, and then it might go as high as 38 degrees Celsius, and might just come down a little to 27 degrees Celsius, and it's expected to be mostly cloudy. Partly cloudy conditions are expected around 11 a.m. Wind gusts are up to 23 kilometers per hour. And that does it for weather predictions today. That should help you to prepare yourself, maybe in timing your appointments, or in the kind of attire that you wear. Whether you have to equip yourself with an umbrella, whether you need to go with some raincoat, and maybe sunglasses, and something to prevent wind, dust from entering your eyes, and all that. Well, that's it for weather, and we just go straight to the newspapers, and I'll be starting with the Guardian newspapers. Now for the Guardian newspapers, the major headline talks about agitations over cost of living crisis, workers' welfare on May Day. And then you have the picture there of the president of the country and the president of Nigeria Labour Congress, and that of the TUC, and so on. And then you also have below that, you have a picture story, and then of, I guess, the Afrima 2025 delegation asking, in a picture with the governor of Lagos State, Jide Sanwo-Olu. And then by the side of that picture story, you have Ayedatiwa hinges development projects on Tinubu's fiscal support for states. Another piece by the side of that picture story says Customs seizes 921 billion sex enhancement drugs and contrabands. And then you have the last by the side of that picture story, Akwa Ibom governor fuels defection speculations, calls PDP spoiled plane on 2027 flight. And then just by the picture story, the story of, the picture of the president, you have Hassal NFB Partners, AFOS Foundation, Carbon Connect on Biocar Initiative. You also have 2 million Nigerian children yet to be immunized, says UNICEF. Well, that picture story is headlined, Afrima 2025, Lagos ready to host Africa, Sanwo-Olu declares. And then you have on top of the major headline, just right under the masthead of The Guardian, you have UBE Fund. Tinubu approves 5-year backlog for states. UBE Fund. Tinubu approves 5-year backlog for states. And then the next one says pandemonium at Port Harcourt refinery as EFCC quizzes acting MD. And the last from the Guardian this morning says Tinubu, Obasanjo, Anyoku, others pay tribute to Ayo Adebanjo at service of songs. And then we move from the Guardian to the Punch. The Punch's major headline says, Mayday push, Labour demands wage review to ease cost of living crisis. And then you have a rider there saying, NAS to address workers' concerns, and Labour rejects 70,000 naira pay over rising inflation and others. Under that, you have two picture stories, and then or just one really, and then it has to do with a defense holdings company inaugurating some housing estate or something like that. And then you have Tinubu, Obasanjo, Jonathan, Atiku pay tributes to Adebanjo. That's under the picture story. And then you have UK speaks on Britain arrested in Nigeria for arms deal. And the last one under that picture story says Afrima 2025, Lagos ready to host Africa, says Sanwo-Olu. And then right by the masthead, you have Wike fires back at Atiku, Dele Momodu over zoning comment. And then you have two pieces on top of the masthead of the Punch. The first one says CBEX resumes operations despite SEC ban, 1.2 trillion EFCC probe. And then you have a rider saying promoters say audit ongoing, and NFIU flags EWC, TOFRO, other Ponzi schemes. And then you have 3 judges suspended as NJC voids Imo acting CJ's appointment. And that's it from the Punch. From the Punch, we go to Daily Trust. Daily Trust main headline says 2027, ACF gives conditions for NOT's support. And then you have a picture story, I guess, about the Terminus market fire in Jos. And then under that, you have a strip which says Mayday, 70,000 minimum wage not enough. That's according to workers. And then under that strip, you have 3 pieces. The first one says, how swindlers preyed on miracle seekers at Kano Holy Site. The next one says, 4 years after, please resume vehicles tinted glass permit issuance. And finally, under that strip, you have kidnappers chop off victims' hands, shun ransom. And on top of the major headline, right under the masthead of the Daily Trust, you have 3 pieces also. The first one says, North Central Governors Mall joint security operations. And then the next one says, bank customers to pay 6 naira on every SMS transaction alert from today. Plateau traders lose 1 billion to midnight inferno. And that's it for the Daily Trust. From the Daily Trust, we go to the Nation. And from the Nation, the major headline says, workers deserve commensurate reward for hard work, says government. And there are 2 riders to that. We will make laws friendly to labor. And then the second rider says, NLC 6 opening up of civic space. And then you have a picture story there. Something that has to do with Nigeria procurement certificate and all that. And then you have, under that, you have NJC hammer falls on 3 judges. Justices Inyang, Ekwo Aliyu on 1-year suspension. And then the second rider says 27 other judges under investigation. And then you have Edu reforms driving long-term private sector-led growth. Reforms are driving long-term private sector-led growth. And then on top of the major headline, you have this strip that says Lagos ready to host Afrima 25, says Sanwo-Olu. And then EFCC Achimugu back in court tomorrow. And then on top of the Nation masthead, you have 3 pieces. The first one says Delta APC ready to receive Ibori, Oborewori declares. And then the second one says IBAS retrieves government vehicles from suspended deputy governor. And the last one says bank charges on SMS alerts go up by 50%. And then you also have president should remain in South till 2031. Below, I mean, the lowest part of the paper, you have this strip that has Ayedatiwa to complete ongoing projects. Appeal court upholds professor's conviction for poll rigging. And that's it from the Nation. From the Nation, we go to This Day. This Day has as major headline, Eno alludes to imminent defection, says PDP will soon grind to a halt. There are 2 riders to that story. The first one says, likens party to a faulty plane unfit to fly. And the second rider says, Baraje, time to move on. Defection overflogged. Okay, there's a third rider saying, Koshoedo assumes office as acting national secretary. And then there's the picture story under that of the funeral service in honor of late Pascal Dozier, that is of the Diamond Bank. And then you have, by the picture story directly under the masthead, you have Tinubu, Obasanjo, Jonathan, Atiku, Obi, Dangote, Adesina, others extol late Adebanjo. And then on top of the masthead of This Day, you have May Day. That's a strip. May Day. Akpabio, Atiku, hail Nigerian workers, say they are engine propelling the nation. And then on top of that, you have Trump's tariffs. U.S. GDP shrinks to 0.3% from 24% in first quarter. Dow tumbles 400 points. And there are 2 riders to that. Trump blames Biden for weak economic growth. And then the second rider says European markets cut losses, close higher. And we have also the Tribune. For the Tribune, the major headline says top Nigerian leaders set to host national political summit. Some writers under that say, first, issues relating to constitutional democracy to be discussed. And then Anyaoku to inaugurate Awolowo Dosunmu, Tambuwal, Daniel, Fayemi, others as convening committee members today. And then under that, you have the picture story of Jide Sanwo-Olu and the Afrima team. And then by the side of that picture story, you have Akwa Ibom. Governor speaks in parables, suggests he may be leaving PDP. And the next one, by the side of that story, CBEX, EFCC declares foreigner wanted. And then the last one by the side of that picture story, court orders EFCC to release Achimugu. And then under that picture story, you have Afrima 2025, Lagos ready to host Africa, Sanwo-Olu declares. Another strip right under that at the bottom of the paper says, ACF says North too strategic to be ignored. North too strategic to be ignored. And then you have another picture story on top right under the Tribune masthead. And then by the side of that picture story, you have McBahn, MBF disagree over visit to U.S. ambassador. And then you also have appeal court upholds conviction of Professor Ogban for electoral fraud. And then you have the Independent, the Daily Independent. And then the major story here has it's citizens gagged, can't express themselves freely, NLC laments. And then there, you have the picture story under that story featuring Ibori and Oboyewori. And then under that, you have experts warn RMRDC bill will put thousands of jobs at risk. And then by the side of the picture story, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces. The first one says Rivers. Lawyers protest in Abuja, seek Fubra's reinstatement. CAN urges national reconciliation, calls for mutual trust. And then Lagos committed to development of creative industry, says Sanwo-Olu. Alleged 8.7 billion money laundering. Court orders EFCC to release Aisha Achimogo. And then there's a bottom strip where you have appeal court upholds conviction of professor for electoral fraud. And then on top of the Daily Independent masthead, you have two pieces. The first one says, ACF urges urgent action on insecurity in the North. And you also have enough of social science graduates. We need problem solvers. That's the minister speaking there, Minister of Education speaking there. That's it for the Daily, Independent. And now finally, we take Daily Sun. The Daily Sun's major headline says, May Day, Labour lists 3 demands. And there are 2 riders to that. Insists Workers' Day celebration won't hold in Rivers and Edo. And the second rider says Akpabio, Atiku, governors, others hail workers' resilience. And then you have a picture story under that. And then under the picture story, you have 4 pieces. The first one says court gives EFCC 24 hours to release Aisha Achimogo. And then you have Akwa Ibom governor Eno hints at defection. And there's a rider to that. It says, I can't be in a faulty aircraft. And then the other piece says North will decide 2027 president, according to the ACF. That's the Arewa Consultative Forum. And then there's a rider saying boasts region's population big enough to guarantee victory. And the last piece under the picture story says Lagos to host Afrima 2025. With a rider, Governor Sanwo-Olu declares state readiness. And then you have, on top of that, you have NFIU, that is the Nigeria Financial Intelligence Unit, warns of surge in Ponzi unregulated crowdfunding scams. And finally, by the Daily Sun masthead, you have State of Nation, Anyoku raises the alarm. With a rider, country risks disintegration, he warns. That's it from the Daily Sun, and that does it for the headlines as we go into a very short break. And when we get back, we'll begin to analyze the headlines that have been read out after the break. Welcome back, dear viewers. You're still on to Kaftan TV, King Adebayo Film and Theatre Arts Network Television, and you are on to the press, and we have reeled out the press, the newspaper headlines this morning, and we begin to look at a few of them in more detail and what they portend, the pros, the cons, and all that has to do with them. One major issue that ran through all the papers has to do with the May Day celebration, that is Workers' Day celebration today, which for which purpose there's a public holiday that's been declared, and Labour is complaining bitterly that there has to be a price review, a salary review again, and that's, I'm sure that is very interesting because they just got one increase to 70,000 naira last year, and in some places, the 70,000 naira has not yet even been implemented. In fact, some states did say they can't afford to pay the 70,000 naira. Yet, the truth remains that, like the NLC is saying, the inflation on the street, the inflation in the markets, the cost of living, the price of goods and services are quite high and makes nonsense of the 70,000 naira. So it's a real situation. It's a quagmire that needs to be resolved, because if you have 70,000 naira as a minimum wage and some states are even unable to pay that, and it's not even reflective in many private organizations, you can imagine a situation where the labor, it's not the labor really, because as a matter of fact, the streets, the markets, says it all. When the things you used to buy at a certain price, you have to buy with so much more. So we have to find a common ground in this matter. And just in case you want to be a part of this program this morning, the line is open now. 080-299-38365 is the number. Please do call in. 080-299-38365.